What up? It's Casper. Today's video, we're talking about the movie Saw 2. Saw 2 is a 2005 movie. It's rated R and it's an hour and 33 minutes. Directed by Darren Lynn Bousman. This movie was actually crazy for a couple reasons. Very shocked to be very in tune throughout this whole movie. And second, finding out that Mark Wahlberg's brother, one of the main actors in this movie. Saw 2 is about Detective Eric Matthews and the police force SWAT team. They're basically trying to look for Jigsaw and his lair on where he keeps all his captive people. Detective Eric Matthews has no idea that him showing up to find Jigsaw is actually part of Jigsaw's plan. Not only that, when the detective shows up and finds Jigsaw's lair, he finds out that his own son is part of the captured people. You see how now the detective has to play Jigsaw's game, another mind trick game being presented. 8 people in Jigsaw's little room that he has these people captured in. See more of like, from Saw 1 we did this, now we're gonna work on this type of swagger. The beginning scene, starting it off like that, very dope. Gave me like some Raw versus SmackDown vibes with the music, shot very well. Jigsaw does return and there's a lot of new characters who are playing this game now. From the first one to the second one, the second one had more of like a good flow with the detective and the whole SWAT team. Cool follow along with these detectives and the SWAT people who are trying to get this Jigsaw person, who trying to get Jigsaw. A shocker with me was actually the detective Eric Matthews, who's played by Donnie Wahlberg. At first, straight up just gave me that vibe. I'm like, he acts just like Mark Wahlberg. And I was just looking at it more, and then there's just mannerisms, the voice at times kind of sounded like him. And then during the movie, I had to like search it up real quick. I just typed in Mark Wahlberg, Donnie Wahlberg, and it was just straight brothers. I'm like, bruh, never have I seen a Donnie Wahlberg movie, so that was pretty dope to get introduced to a Donnie Wahlberg movie. His acting was okay with the horror scenery and the horror lines. His presentation was okay for what he was given. There was good feel and a lot of the stuff was believable with his lines. His detective mannerism from other characters describing him as, you know, a very good cop, a cop who gets medals to be on his job. So that presentation, I would say, was done well. The projection and interaction with Jigsaw when that was presented, that was okay. I feel like there could have been a little bit more. What was given, I say, was actually passable. The whole SWAT team had moments where I'm like, oh, that's a little cheesy how some of the cops were presenting some of their lines, but overall, like, the atmosphere and the camera direction made everyone look crispy. So gotta shout out Darren Lynn Bousman. But overall, Donnie Wahlberg's performance was a shocker to me, and it was okay. Probably out of 10, give it like a cool 6.5, so almost like a 7, because he had moments where you're like, oh, you know, he actually has feel, and he actually is very astonished and creeped out at times and pissed off because of this Jigsaw playing the games. You could see how the interaction with Jigsaw and the detective makes sense at the end. Sometimes on how the detective is responding back to Jigsaw, I'll be like, oh, it's a little too off, but the way the story kept flowing, I think did very well. The Saw movies, especially with Saw 2, did a crazy mind trick how they did it at the end. That's how I'll explain Donnie's acting. It did held up to a cool Saw standard. His acting wasn't the awkwardest one, but it was just interesting to know that he was Mark Wahlberg's brother. The team that he was with, I would say they're presentable as well. I mean, they didn't really do too much. The SWAT team did okay. Here and there, you saw a couple of the SWAT team people get into the booby traps of Jigsaw, so that was pretty creative. But the actors on the SWAT team were okay. I'm just glad that the SWAT team had more of a flow in this movie and they involved more people, because it did have like a SWAT feel. The people who are locked up in the room, their acting was cool at times. There's some times where they're going a little bit overboard, and sometimes their acting gave me a little Lifetime feel where it felt like a little low budget movie. The camera direction helped their acting. Some of the lines where they're able to emphasize like screaming or doing something, that's where I'll say that was more in tuned and more in the right direction. There's a character named Xavier. His look was just, let's just have a bigger dude who's gonna be like a bully, and his look did present that. Pretty sure the writing for him was to also express that, but I feel like his presentations at time wasn't the greatest. So Xavier's played by Frankie G, the bully, and sometimes he was a weird creep dude. The presentation on that was here and there okay. It wasn't cheesy though, where you're like, oh, what are we watching? Saw Amanda in here from the first one. Her story was a little plot twist as well, and presentation was interesting because she had more screen time. There was brutal deaths in here. Environment did have that creepy feel, horror feel. There was that thrill feel as well. I had all that. It wasn't slacking on none of that. A little bit less gore and a little bit less blood. I feel like the first one had way more. And whenever they did present their death scenes, you could still feel how brutal they are, even if they didn't have a lot of blood. Obi, his death scene with him being in the furnace, I thought, like, even though there wasn't too much blood shown, you could still feel like that's brutal. This movie also presents where there is blood, where another character like Jonas, man, Jonas was a cool character. His death, sorry to spoil, but his death was insane too. Like, I was just like, whoa, that was crazy. The sound effects on making some of these deaths were very vicious, and it was very crazy too. I was like, yo, that's insane. You felt that environment that they're in. Once again, the camera direction does make you feel a lot of these emotions, so they did focus on that. The storytelling and the lines with Jigsaw were very good. Seeing this second one and seeing how much screen time he has is very interesting, because I'm hearing that the new one, he has a lot of screen time. And this one right here, seeing his acting, I was like, yo, can't wait to see the new one, because let's see where it just goes off. His acting for that presentation of just being an old dude being sick is definitely shown. Best actor in the movie for sure. Overall, Jigsaw, he has that vibe all on point with him, so I can't really knock anything off with him. The detective's son, that was a character that when the movie flowed, you see more of the exhaustion with a lot of the characters, and I would say the more exhausted characters look, like the detective's son, the more realistic the whole environment felt. You see a lot of these actors do good on presenting exhaustion, good on presenting like coughing up blood, good on presenting that, you know, they're in an environment where they shouldn't breathe any of that air. Detective Son, his character grew on me, and overall the story, crazy. I would say Saw 2, huge standout. It was a shocker to me because I was in tune this whole time. I feel like with the first one, I was just more focused on just seeing how this Saw franchise just started. Second one got me way in tuned, and there was just more eye-catching things for me in this one. I like how this movie also brought references from the first movie to that same bathroom area from the first movie. I was like, oh, they're back in the first movie again. There is brutal scenes in this movie. Movie starts very cool with the introduction scene. Good flow from the beginning, middle, and end. The acting could be a little wonky, but as the movie just flows and progresses, you see a lot of the feel of like exhaustion, a lot of the feel of just tiredness, feel of just being desperate. So you see a lot of angles, you feel a lot of emotions with the camera angles. The music in the background is very enhanced to help the camera work. First one to the second one, they didn't make it feel like it was the same thing. I liked how from the first one to the second one, the mystery just continues. It still made you wonder. When the movie ends, it's like, damn, that character for sure is going through it. And the second one is worth a watch. Let me know if you think the first one is better than the second one, but I'll say the second one might be a little better than the first one. Hearing the third one is good too, so can't wait to watch that one. After my watching Saw 2 out of 10, I'm gonna have to give it a 10 out of 10. That's my movie review for the movie Saw 2. Shout out to you guys for tuning into the video. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace, y'all.